So thanks everyone for joining. This is the District 1 Multimodal Transportation Study Town Hall. We are using Zoom tonight, obviously, so I just wanted to go over kind of a few rules for tonight. We are using the chat, so if there's questions along the way, please drop them in the chat. Stay on mute so everyone can hear. And we look forward to the conversation. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce Supervisor Chan and invite her to give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. And I just really first want to thank our County Transportation Authority staff. Thank you so much for all your hard work, and I want to give a quick shout out to our executive director, Tilly Chang. With her leadership, so we are able to actually accomplish a lot. And with her support, it's really helping the commission and myself included to move things forward, especially when it comes to transportation improvements citywide and definitely in District 1. For those that thinking about like how does a district supervisor get involved with transportation in San Francisco and what kind of jurisdiction we have, and it's actually really different from SFMTA. SFMTA is really under the San Francisco MTA Board Directors jurisdiction, and SFMTA Director is really I would say serve under the jurisdiction of the mayor as well. Whereas as a district supervisor, I also serve as a commissioner on the County Transportation Authority, and I'm just really pleased to be part of that. And it's really a different body. All my colleagues, all 10 of my colleagues, myself included, serve as commissioner, and that is really the structure. And really thanks to the voters with the support of the Prop L last year, this sales tax renewal, that's really where the TA's funding comes from, and that it's continued to help us to support some of the capital improvements projects. But really the CTA and SFMTA play a very, collaborative partnership dynamic that we move all these goals forward. But I just kind of want to explain that structure a little bit so everyone knows, like, oh, how is this like CTA different from SFMTA, and what is this study? Is actually not a SFMTA study, it's a CTA funded study moving forward. I also want to give a quick few minutes, if okay, to give a quick update about just where we've been since I took office in 2021 in terms of transportation updates. I think there are really things that are happening in District 1 impacting our community, like the Great Highway closure or the JFK closure and slow streets program that took place on Lake Street. While those are really like very attracted a lot of attention projects, there actually are also a lot of great projects happened in District 1, like our Fulton Street Safety Project, our Anza bike lane, and pedestrian improvements that actually completed in 2021. And meanwhile, we're continuing to try to get our bus service restored, and just in 2021 we have our 31 Balboa and 1846 Avenue restored, and in this year now we have 1 California Express restore service as well. But I also wanted to continue to think about what the future actually holds for District 1. We recently also, in collaboration, SFMTA will be installing pedestrian flashing beacons, 38 and Gary. And frankly, that's really actually from a tragedy I experienced even before I took office in December 2020. And just in that area, if those live in outer Richmond knows that we definitely need, in my opinion, more pedestrian safety improvements. So that's kind of some of the things that we're doing, but of course there's still the California streets improvements and Gary BRT that is happening, and I am excited about those projects too. But and we were going to collect feedbacks from everyone, but those are not the things that we're going to be talking about today. Today, we are really going to look to the future and some of the project continue happening, but would love to get feedback from the community. I really hope that this study is actually community driven, because we know that far too often, no matter what kind of planning, transit, housing, a lot of time by city planning, it feels like for our community is that we present you a project and then we get your feedback. And then, you know, there's sometimes like conflicts arise, but this is a moment where I think that let's get ahead of that, actually allow this to be community driven. Let's hear what your feedback are. The goal ultimately though is to make District 1 more pedestrian and cyclist friendly. And that how can we continue and make sure that we increase use of public transit, because that really is where the future should go. And I really urge you to think about this study in that context and give us feedback, help us reach those goals sooner rather than later. I really hope that with this study that also help us to think about things that are more concrete improvements that we can fight for funding. We can, you know, earn funding, and you know, Director Chang is so good with that with her team that she knows how to leverage local funding to actually for state and federal support. So those are the things that I would love for all of you to think about. And then there's one grand things that my colleagues been talking about on the west side, especially Supervisor Mirna Malgar, thinking about underground in the future, you know, and that of course, it's going to take a lot of effort, but I'm going to plant all those seeds because that is what I'm here to do with this study, and hope that all of you will take this study seriously and be productive about this, about to take this time, because our staff, TA staff really are all here, and they are, you know, in this evening, and that is here to get your feedback. So I really hope that we can move this conversation forward in a very productive way, not just today, but we're gonna also continue with these conversations. So this is the first of many to come, first in the series. I look forward to also seeing some of you in person, but I'm also really glad to be able to do this online. For those who still, this is more convenient and more, feel like more safe forum for some of you, then this is the place to be. But we'll do more of this, I promise. And thank you so much for the TA staff for all your time and your effort. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak at this time.
Thank you, Supervisor Chan. Great overview. So we're going to get started with the presentation. We do have breakout rooms available in Spanish, Chinese, and Russian. So before we start the presentation, there's going to be a box that appears on your screen in a couple minutes. You can select the language, the room with the presentation in the language that you prefer. If you would like to have a presentation in English, just stay in the main room. I'm going to have the different interpreters introduce themselves. So we'll start with Spanish. Luis.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Luis Ayala. Yo seré el intérprete en español que estaré en el breakout room. En su laptop, haga clic donde dice Breakout Rooms en los controles de su reunión. Esto mostrará una lista de reuniones para grupos pequeños. En su celular debería aparecer un botón Join Breakout Room, que significa uniéndose a los grupos pequeños. En la esquina superior izquierda de la pantalla, pase el cursor sobre el número a la derecha del Breakout Room que desea unirse. Haga clic en Unirse, Join, y después confirme haciendo clic en Join. Muchas gracias. Lo espero en el Breakout Room.
Thank you, Luis.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Miranda.
各位晚上好，今日我哋嘅大會係有呢個提供語言嘅服務嘅。我哋係將我哋唔同嘅語言係分組咁樣討論。當你睇到屏幕下低有一個指示，你可以選擇即時呢個收聽呢個語言嘅傳譯服務咧，你可以選擇。如果你唔選擇其中一個語言咧，你就會留返喺英文組。咁我哋提供嘅語言服務包括西班牙語、中文同埋俄語嘅分組討論區。 咁如果你係睇到個屏幕顯示我哋有呢個叫做分組討論區 breakout room， 咁你就揀你嘅語言。當然啦，如果你係想收聽我幫你做嘅傳譯，你就揀中文。咁咧，你就會去到嗰個嘅中文嘅分組討論區，就會聽到我嘅即時傳譯。多謝。
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Elena? Oh, you're muted. Oh, we can't hear you, Elena. Okay, well, Elena will fix the audio. The directions are up here. So Eric, do you want to release the breakout room window? And Elena, maybe you can fix the audio in the breakout room.
All right, so the breakout rooms are open for anybody who wants to join.
What the fuck? Where did I get into?
If you need help with the breakout rooms, feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat and we can help with that. Okay, so we'll get started with the presentation. The presentation in English will just stay in the main room, so stay where you are for this presentation. Okay, so for tonight, we're gonna go over a bit more context about the project that we're doing. Then we'll kind of dive into some data around travel patterns for District 1 residents. Then we'll talk about projects that could that are for consideration, and then conclude with the next steps. Throughout the entire presentation, we have some breaks where there'll be Zoom polls, so we can, ask questions, get some feedback. And of course, if there's any questions along the way, please put them in the chat. We'll be monitoring those. So to start, just a bit of context about this study. So as Supervisor Chan noted, this is a project that was developed with her and her office. And the goal of the study is really to find ways to improve transportation and safety and reduce emissions within District 1. The goal of the study is to identify near and long-term concepts to improve transit reliability, safety on our streets, and also reduce vehicle trips and emissions associated with driving in District 1. The project study area, again, is District 1. It covers most of the Richmond district. So this map shows the District 1 boundary, as well as the transit network, the bike network, and equity priority communities. Our equity priority communities, which are shown in orange, are parts of the city that include a diverse cross-section and populations that could be considered disadvantaged or vulnerable now and in the future. So, we do want to think about this community as we go through this project. There's also been quite a few projects in the Richmond or in District 1 over the past few years. And as the supervisor noted, there's more coming. So this map is intended to kind of capture what's recently been studied. And for this project, we are looking to build off this past work and come up with recommendations that have not been covered by any of these projects or the projects that are upcoming, or potentially make additional improvements to further enhance these. So before we get started, we wanted to first ask folks what your top priority for transportation in District 1 is. So we're going to release a poll and the options will be safe routes to schools and transit. So this is looking at improving the walk and bike networks to schools and to our transit stops. Also improving bike networks that can be protected bike lanes, adding new bike connections, transit reliability, making transit more reliable, transit accessibility, making sure transit is easy to access and also maybe has amenities at the stops that make waiting for the bus more comfortable, reducing emissions. So again, lowering the emissions from vehicles, streetscape and public realm improvements. So this is, all the pieces on the sidewalk, the experience of being on the street, things like lighting, trees, and then congestion management, how our roads perform, and addressing congestion. And importantly, if you have a different priority that's not on here, there will be a pop-up in a after this poll where you can write in other ideas. And if you also want to have more context, you can put them in the chat.
Thanks, Eliza. The poll is live, and I'm going to keep it up for just another couple of seconds in case anybody wants to weigh in. And I'm going to end that poll now.
I don't see the poll.
Should have popped up on your screen automatically.
At the bottom of your screen, like in the bar, there's also a polls button. So if you click that, the poll should pop up. If it's still not working, you can always just drop your answer in the chat and we'll record it that way.
Yeah, sorry you're having trouble. And yes, we will hold on to the chat, so we will be able to capture that. So ending poll number 1, and then I will launch poll 1A for folks that don't see one of their priorities on this list.
Where's the pop-up on poll 1A? I don't see it.
Yeah, apologies. I am running into a technical problem here. I'm just trying to solve that in a second.
While Eric's doing that, I can speak to a kind of the themes coming in for the first poll about priorities. So it looks like improving bike networks is quite high. And then there's a tie for transit reliability and safe routes to transit and schools. So those are kind of the top 3 right now, but it looks like more folks are still participating.
Excuse me, Alisa, this is Elena. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. That was a major glitch. I'll have to switch a device. I don't know what happened. I apologize. So can I join the Russian group if there's anybody there?
Yeah, Eric will help. Eric will help you get.
Okay, please let me.
Yep, we'll do that right now. Thank you. So, Eliza, we are having some trouble on this side on the polling, the Zoom polling. So what I would like to propose is when we get to the other questions in the presentation, that folks enter their responses in the chat. Apologies for that.
Okay, yes, we can do that. So in lieu of 1A, if there's other options that are not on this list, I saw some folks kind of jotting them down in the chat. Please put your other priorities in the chat and we'll record them that way. Apologies for the Zoom poll technical difficulties. Okay. And so while you all are putting your thoughts in, we'll keep going. So the next section is on District 1 travel patterns. So we looked at pre-COVID travel data to understand travel patterns of resident trip making. So trips that are starting within District 1. Through this project, we're using community engagement, and we're also looking to collect more recent travel data to understand how these patterns may have shifted during COVID. So we'll start looking at patterns kind of within the district, and then we'll zoom out to a broader perspective. So to begin, this study again is focusing on District 1 resident travel. So we're looking at those daily round trips that start within the district. For all resident trip making, including those that start and end within the district, to other parts of the city and region. And so we'll like expand out from the district level out to the regional level. And so to start, we wanted to just start with how District 1 residents are traveling. Primarily, traveling is done by driving. Autos are making up more than 60% of resident trip making. And this is for trips to everywhere, all trips, everywhere within the district, the city, and the region. To understand neighborhood travel patterns, we first looked at the land uses and commercial corridors within District 1 to identify these 5 mini districts or different attractors within the district. So these are the kind of hubs that we've identified that generate a lot of travel destinations. So we have the VA, Outer Balboa, the Central Richmond, Inner Richmond, and St. Mary's, USF. And each of the mini districts have unique travel trends. They draw a different amount of trips. So the trips that they draw are shown with the yellow dots. So on the left, Central Richmond generates the most trips, and then these are in order by the amount of trips that are generated, with the VA having the lowest residential trips. There's also differences in travel choice to access these different areas. Driving is the most common choice for trips to all of the mini districts, with the VA having the highest portion of driving trips. On average, about 55% of resident trips to mini districts are by auto. This includes carpool trips. The St. Mary's USF is an exception, where walking and transit is a bigger mode choice than walking. So I mentioned we also wanted to look at trips resident trips that are starting within District 1 to other parts of the city. So here you can see the most common destination for city trips are to downtown, the Sunset, and other adjacent neighborhoods. And then there's fewer trips to the southeast and northeast. Those are shown in lighter blue. About 20% of trips are staying within the district. So those are trips that are starting and ending within District 1, and then the remainder leave the district. And similarly, we wanted to look at regional trips. The Peninsula and South Bay is the most common destination. About 7% of regional trips are going to those areas. And then we wanted to see also kind of how travel choice changes by these different areas. So again, overall, 61% of trips are made by vehicle or by driving. And then there's some kind of outliers in terms of transit, with transit being a predominant choice for trips to the downtown Soma, North Beach area, North Beach and Chinatown areas, where there are those high frequency transit lines going east-west. And then for internal trips, there's a high amount of people walking. So there are a lot of walking trips and a lot of driving trips for trips that are starting with and ending within District 1. We also wanted to understand crash patterns in the district. The high injury network was updated in 2022 and identifies corridors with the highest concentration of fatal crashes. So building off the city's 2022 high injury network, which is shown with those orange lines, we looked at location and severity of pedestrian and bike crashes. So here you can see the high injury network again shown in yellow. And then the dots are the pedestrian and bike crash locations that, and the color represents the severity, with darker colors being more severe. This data is from 2017 to 2022 and does not include 2023 data yet. So the recent fatality on Arguello is not captured in this data. However, crashes and crashes that have taken place this year will be a consideration in this study. There have been collisions scattered throughout the about 530 intersections within the district. There was at least one pedestrian involved crash at 120 intersections, so it's almost a quarter of all the intersections. There was at least one reported bicycle crash at about 80 intersections. So this gives us a little bit of insight into where we might focus the recommendations of this study, or how, where we might want to develop more concepts to advance. So we're going to go on. We'll see if the poll works this time. If not, folks can use the chat. We're going to kind of follow the flow of the information that was just presented. So for this first question, we want to understand, on your most recent trip within District 1. So again, trip when you stayed within District 1, which of these areas or mini districts did you visit? If you visited somewhere else, please share. And then also, how did you get there? Eric, is the poll working?
I'm afraid it's not. I've been furiously scrambling on my side. I'm afraid I don't know what happened. So if folks can please use the chat in response to the poll questions. And again, I apologize for the inconvenience.
We'll give folks maybe a minute. See a lot of inner Richmond, walking, cycling, some transit, some driving as well, which is great. We do want to get perspectives from everyone, so it's a great mix so far. And then similar question. So this is looking to when you travel to other parts of San Francisco, where did you visit? There's a map up on the screen that shows neighborhoods. Feel free to drop the neighborhood that you visited if it's not on here. And then again, how you traveled there. Again, a good mix coming through. Noticing more driving trips. And really spanning all parts of the city so far. We'll give another minute to answer these questions. All right, and now the final question in this section, feel free to keep outing the city destinations and mode that you used. And then the final question is to other parts of the region. Where did you visit? So this would be North Bay, East Bay, Peninsula, or South Bay, and how you got there. Again, a good variety. A lot of transit, a lot of driving, some biking. Great, thanks everyone for adapting to the chat. We appreciate it. For the question, is paratransit transit? Yes, but please specify with paratransit. That's a great to specify. Thank you. Great. Okay, and feel free to keep dropping them in if you haven't done so already. And so now we're going to move on to a section for improvements that could be for consideration. And so what we did was looked at recently completed and upcoming projects within the district. We brought together the various needs that have been expressed through past outreach and also in more recent community conversations. So I'm going to go through sort of the ideas that have already been expressed. These are all things that could be considered, and we'll at the end be looking to hear from you if or the relative importance of these concepts or if there's other concepts that you would like to see considered. So to start is new or improved bike connections. So these help close gaps in the existing network or make new connections within the district and to surrounding neighborhoods. The concept would focus on establishing new north-south bike connections. We know there's a particular need in the outer Richmond. We also know that there are needs on Arguello, with which SFMTA is working to develop improvements around. So new bike connections can include things like bike lanes, as well as other tools to slow traffic and really keep streets calm, low speed, to create a space for bicyclists. The next concept is traffic calming on commercial corridors. This helps to keep traffic speeds low and reduce conflicts between vehicles and people walking and biking. Improvements could include things like wider sidewalks, curb extensions that help shorten the crossing distances and slow speeds, and also different intersection treatments to improve visibility of pedestrians. We also have transit improvements. So these can be improvements to improve reliability. As we shared earlier in the presentation, there's many active transit improvement projects happening, particularly on the east-west line. So this concept would focus on improvements to the additional lines within District 1, particularly the north-south routes that connect to the Sunset and further south. So transit improvements can include things like transit lanes, signal priorities to improve travel times. It can include stop improvements like shelters, lighting, seating, and it can also include things like transit boarding platforms to make it easier to board and give more space at stops. EV charging is another concept. So this can help reduce barriers to owning and using electric vehicles for more trips. In San Francisco, EV charging can be particularly challenging because many residential units don't have parking or the buildings are not able to support the added electrical need. So this concept would explore public locations and programs to expand the availability of charging within District 1. Next is mobility hubs. So mobility hubs are places where multiple transportation options are available and also come together so that it's easy to make transfers and connections. So the picture here is an example of that. So you can see, there's bike share, there's transit, there's some food, there's lockers for people who are doing active transportation, there's car access, car share, EV charging, right? So all of those things can come together in one space. Again, making it easy to transfer between modes and make trips to other parts of the city. And then finally, the last one is access improvements to Golden Gate Park. This would focus on developing improvements along Fulton. The concept would build on some planned and upcoming improvements to Fulton, really looking at how to connect across Fulton into Golden Gate Park. And it could advance efforts from previous studies that looked at park access as well. And so here we want to understand the importance of these potential concepts for consideration. I saw some folks leaving messages in the chat. So I think what we would ask for this in lieu of the poll is if you have a top priority to drop it in the chat. If you have other ideas that were not on this list, please also drop them in the chat so we can have them in our records for future consideration. We'll leave a minute or so for folks to answer. I'll leave this one up for a little bit longer so you all can see the list. And again, if there's something on this list or something that's not on this list that you would like to see, please drop it in the chat also. Okay, so that concludes the bulk of the presentation. Thank you for keep dropping your chats in. So I wanted to also let everyone know that there is a survey online that on our project website, which is sfcta.org/d1-study. And we would like everyone to take the survey, share it with your friends, neighbors. There's two ways to provide feedback through this survey. There's a general project survey, which has questions and answers. And within that, there's a link to an interactive map where you can put, you can select a specific location on the map and add in any more details about specific challenges that you're facing with different types of ways of getting around. So the survey will be open through early June on June 4th. So again, please take the survey and share it with your community. And then to conclude, and then we'll see if there's any questions. This is our project timeline. So we are right now doing outreach. We're going to take all the outreach that we've heard. I should also mention that there will be in-person outreach throughout the month of May. So we'll be doing pop-ups around District 1. All of that information will be posted on the website. Eric, can you drop the link to the survey in the chat? I'm just seeing someone ask for that, please. So we'll be, thank you. So we'll be doing outreach through the spring. I mentioned there will be events going on through May. Those will all be posted on our website. In the summer, we'll be taking all of the feedback that we've heard through outreach to identify concepts. In the fall, we'll come back with concepts based on what we've heard through the first round of outreach, and be seeking input from you all about how to refine those concepts. So, looking for feedback on, if we've reflected what we've heard correctly, and if we should make adjustments. And then through the winter, we'll be making refinements to the concepts and completing the study in winter 2023. And so that is our project schedule. I think here's the link again on this page. And so I'd like to see if there's any questions that have come through. There's quite a lot of chats. So if there's any questions that you all have, please put them in the chat so we can answer them. I'm seeing some points about distributing the survey. So again, please share the survey link, with your networks within District 1, resident, your neighbors, your friends. Please feel free to share the link so we can get, broad feedback about these study questions. This is really going to help us shape the concepts that we develop. So it's important to get feedback from everyone. And I'm not seeing any questions. Did anyone, Eric, maybe from the project team, see questions come through?
Seeing another request to post the survey link. I'll put that up right now.
Thank you. I see a question about self-driving cars. So the survey will have, I think this is meaning the Waymo and Cruise vehicles as a way of getting around. So the survey does ask about car share. So I think that kind of all goes in the same category with the Uber, Lyfts, Waymos, and Cruise. Just want to clarify that. The survey does include demographic information. So again, I encourage everyone to pull up the survey. It will be open through June 4th. So it'll be open for a bit over a month. And to share that with your network. All right, and I'm not seeing project questions. So if there's no other questions, then we will thank you all for, before we do that, there is an announcement from SFMTA. I forgot.
Thank you, Eliza. Hi, everyone. Thank you for participating in tonight's meeting for the D1 study. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jean Long. I am the Complete Streets Manager at SFMTA, and our team is also currently working on a active communities plan, which focuses on active mobility, basically how people ride and roll throughout the city. We also have an ongoing survey as well, but it's citywide. But I also want to share with folks, this is also another opportunity to share feedback. I'll put the link to the website with all the information there. And this survey, I can also link that directly as well. or the Active Communities Plan. So this is about a 2-year effort with the community. We're touching all different neighborhoods, and we'd like to see you all at D1. So we'll be jumping on board also in support of the D1 mobility study, and you should also see some of the MTA folks at these future events. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jean. All right, thank you everyone for your time and participating and for the great chat discussion. We will save this all and use it to identify.
Did you not know? Or did you know?
I forgot. When is the next meeting going to be?
So there's going to be multiple meetings in May. Those will all be posted to the project website. And so there will be, events at different destinations within District 1. There will also be an in-person town hall, so very similar to tonight, but in person at the end of May. And so that will, when we have that date, it will also be posted to the website. And then there will be another round of outreach in the fall. So once we have the concepts, developed based on what we hear in this round, there will be a second round to get more feedback and input to help us refine and continue to advance those concept development pieces that will ultimately feed into our study recommendations.
And how long do you think this will take?
We're aiming to complete the study by the end of the year or early 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you, everyone.